Hello, guys. Our speaker is here. He's having a little. Oh, there he is.
Hello.
Hi, Garrett.
Hey, sorry about that. I got this weird thing with my Zoom where I can't join by link. I have to put in like the code and.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I hate that. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I was having that issue earlier. So you're good. You're good.
I think I gotta like reinstall. I don't know if I had to update Chrome and like install like the Zoom plugin or whatever, but.
I think it's an update. They update it all the time.
But normally I'm making my own Zoom meetings, so it's or everybody always sends out that giant pre-constructed invite that they have, which is ridiculous, and it's got like 8 million things. So that's normally that has in there the little meeting code I can just put in. But anyways.
Well, I guess we could get the show at the raw. Hello and welcome back. Hope you guys have fun in a networking session that we had earlier. So now we have, in order to improve our network circuit, so going on topic, we have our next speaker. That's a topic in regards to what can industry certs do to help you get started in the field. Garrett Whelan is a professor of cybersecurity at Long Beach City College and has been teaching IT, networking, and security for over 10 years. And he has been working with technology even longer. So everybody, please give a round of applause to our next speaker, Garrett Whelan. If you could take over.
Thank you very much, Louis. Sorry, everybody. I apologize about being a little bit late. So this is interesting. I haven't seen it set up like this with the panelists and attendees, because I was going to ask some questions, and I don't know how that's going to work now.
Don't care of you. Well, how we're doing it, we're looking at the session Q&A through Huba. People can post their questions there, and then we will answer the question. We will ask the questions that have the most likes, essentially, and go from there.
Okay.
We'll wait until you're finished, and then we'll give you the questions ourselves that we get from the guests.
Okay, if that's easiest for you guys, no problem. So thank you everybody for coming here. Appreciate you spending your time on a Saturday. You could be doing lots of things more interesting than looking at me and looking at what was supposed to be my daughter's room, but it's kind of turned into an office/utility room since the pandemic. I refuse a Zoom background. Those of you who don't know me, I refuse to use the Zoom background through the entire pandemic because we're inviting people into our homes. We should act like it. So that's why you'll see a little broom and it's diapers back there. So welcome to my home. I'm going to talk today about certifications, IT, cybersecurity industry certs, and their relevance and how they affect getting a job in the field, what you should be looking at when you evaluate, hey, what cert should I go after? All that fun stuff. Let me go ahead and this is interesting. I don't normally use PowerPoints in my teaching. So let me try and share. There we go. Let me do that and share. Get this over just what you need. All right. There we go. Is everybody looking at my PowerPoint before we move on? You have a thumbs up? Okay. All right. So certifications, why? What do they do for me? How are they related to or different from getting a degree in a technical field, degrees in computer science, degrees in computer engineering, degrees in information technology, degrees in cybersecurity, or more specialized degrees? Now, you guys have a couple of questions I wanted to ask first. So I don't know if we can get some feedback immediately, if that's part of the process, but I wanted to know, first of all, what certifications has anybody here heard of?
I could, let me see if I could.
Network Plus, A+ in the chat.
Yeah.
Network Plus, A+, okay. Oh, so people can talk in the chat. Oh, good.
Yeah, they could,
Yeah, I'm allowing more people. So CompTIA, A++, around CompTIA.
So anything with a
A+.
plus that's a CompTIA, that's going to be your most common ones. Anything else anybody ever heard of?
they went over a few cybersecurity related ones. I think it was like the CI or something.
You know, there's CompTIA
Yeah.
Security plus.
There's a
Also.
CompTIA Security Plus. There's a CISSP, might be the
Yeah,
one you're
that
thinking
one.
of, Sergio.
Yeah.
And, you know, OSCP, right? Microsoft Certs. Badges, Ramon, are actually kind of a new thing. I'm going to mention that a little bit later on. The MTA, which is the Microsoft Technology Essentials, which are actually going away at the end of this year. Okay, good. The thing that's complicated about certs is knowing which ones are going to help you get that job that you want, help you get in the door. So my next question would be to all of you, why do we have certifications?
To show people that you're serious.
To show people that you're serious, to improve your skills, get employed.
Pretty much become marketable as well.
Become marketable. So here's the thing. Those are all reasons why you would want to get a cert. But why does Microsoft create a cert? Microsoft doesn't care if Lewis has a job. They're nice people, but they're not that nice.
Profit and
set a standard, right? So we're going to talk about the different categories of certification, right? To make money, you know, there are some companies where the certification is what they do, right? That is how they generate income. Not many though. Like offensive security with the OSCP is the biggest one that I know of, right? But like when Microsoft or Cisco, when those companies have a certification, you know, Ramon says to make sure you know the product. That's it. Make sure that you know the product and to make sure that there are people out there who can administer, secure, configure their product. So Microsoft wants you to get a certification on their tools for them to sell, you know, Azure, right? Because if a bunch of people are out there with Azure certifications, you know, you go out in the workforce and they say, hey, we got to move to the cloud. What are we going to do? If you have an Azure cert, hey, let's set up this on Azure. If you have an AWS cert, you're much more likely to say, let's set this up on AWS, right? So it's their way of evangelizing their product. And the most successful one of those really has been Cisco. Cisco with their CCNA, it's really the #1 networking cert, but it really spread Cisco to every corner. And now everybody else who makes a networking product makes sure, hey, any commands you learn how to run on, you know, Cisco also run on ours, because nobody else even bothers to come up with their own certification, right? So it's important to kind of distinguish why they're running why they have a certification versus why you want one. So you want one to demonstrate your skills. I also want to be clear about the difference between getting certified versus like getting a degree, right? So at Long Beach City College, we have a number of classes which map to certifications. I teach, you know, this semester I'm teaching a Network Plus class, right? Or it's a networking class. But, you know, maybe I'm a lazy grader, right? Or maybe Sergio gives Lewis copies of all his homework and I don't catch it, right? Or maybe who knows what I'm really teaching in the class. There's no kind of standardized networking class out there. So when you go to get a job and they ask you, do you know networking? You might have learned a ton of things in my networking class, but that doesn't prove it to them, right? So getting an industry certification means that the employer knows what you learned, right? They can look at the objectives and say, okay, you have a CompTIA Network Plus, you know how to do this, 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 and this, right? You have the Security Plus, you know about this, 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 and this. It also means that the information you're learning is current and relevant. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I've looked at syllabi for other faculty for classes that they teach. And I'm like, this must have been written in like 1995 because this is way out of date. By getting an industry cert, you prove that at least at that point in time, your information was up to date, right? So proof of skills and correct or relevance of skills are really what why we want to get certified. So before we get into anything else, if you're a very busy person, you got to let me tell you right now, for almost all of you, if you're interested in a career in security, the CompTIA Security Plus is probably what you want. Now I'm going to talk about why you want it, how it compares to other ones, what other ones might be relevant depending upon specializations. But for 90% of you, if you're looking for your first certification in the field, the CompTIA Security Plus is what is going to be the best choice for you. It's vendor neutral. That is, it's not put out by Microsoft or Cisco or anybody else. So it's not specifically trying to push a product that might go away. So an interesting note about Microsoft certifications. Microsoft certifications are good for life, and they always have been, because Microsoft just pushes out new products every few years. So sure, your Server 2003 certification is good for life, but in 2012, they've gone through like 3 iterations of Server, so your certification isn't relevant anymore because of that. And that's the kind of a thing you run into with vendor-specific certifications, right? Security Plus, you can come from many different backgrounds. A lot of you, so some of you are here, you're doing kind of like IT management type program. Some of you are coming in, you're doing more like pure cybersecurity. A lot of you, I'm sure, are computer science or computer technology with more of a programming emphasis. For any of those people, the Security Plus is still very relevant. So that's another reason I highly recommend it. There are a lot of resources for getting ready for it. A lot of free resources like Professor Messer videos, cheap resources like books that you can get, and then a lot of training that'll give you hands-on things. Like in our class, we use Test Out, right? So there's just a lot of things to help you prepare for it. It satisfies the Department of Defense Regulation 8570. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but basically it qualifies you for a lot of federal jobs, and by extension for a lot of defense supplier jobs, because they have a certain number of people who have to have certifications that meet that requirement. And it kind of becomes a general industry standard because everybody says, well, if it's good enough for the federal government, we'll accept it as well. And it's a very achievable certification. There are a lot of certifications that if you're just starting out, you're new to the field, you're going to have a really hard time actually passing the certification within a reasonable time frame. That is, when I say reasonable, I'm thinking 1 to 3 months of preparation, right? The example I always use is, the offensive security certified professional, right? Penetration testing with Cali, because a lot of students are really excited and they really want to get into penetration testing. So they look at that cert. That if you're going to do that in 3 months, like just coming out of college, that basically means that you're doing it as a full-time job for 3 months. And I've known plenty of people who've done it as a full-time job for 3 months and still failed the exam. It's just an incredibly difficult exam. Whereas the Security Plus is much more reasonable in the amount of study time that you have to do in order to get it. I do got a question from Kim Young. Should you take the CompTIA cert in order to skip to the Security Plus? I'm not sure what you mean. What CompTIA cert in order? So we'll talk a little bit about organization in a minute, but everything that has a plus at the end of it is underneath the CompTIA umbrella, right? And we'll get into that in a second. We're going to talk about certifications history, right? Who here remembers Gateway? Show of hands, right? give me a little thumbs up with your reactions. All right, so remember Gateway had the cow print on the box. So if you wanted to work on Gateway computers circa 1994, you actually had to go to Gateway and take their PC Tech certification exam. And then if you wanted to work on Dell's, well, you had to go there and take their PC Tech certification exam, which asked exactly the same questions because they were made in the same factories by the same child labor and just had different, corporate logos slapped on the front. They're exactly the same. So CompTIA really came out of, hey, we have all these different PC manufacturers and they're all making everybody take their own certification exams to demonstrate the same skills. What if we all got together? So all of these industry leaders got together and said, we'll all agree this is what a PC tech should know, right? This is what a PC tech should know. And that became the A+, which is CompTIA's original certification. It is still a very popular certification, although to be honest with you, it's not very relevant for what most of you guys are going to do in your first job. But because, the people who employ you, who hire you someday took the A+ back in 1993. They think that's what you should know now. And actually until 2011, if you got the A+, it was good for life, right? So it was a lifetime cert. That started to be very problematic because you had guys who passed it in 1993 and it, 2013, they're looking for a job and they got A+ on their resume and their data, their information is very out of date. So in 2011, CompTIA said, yeah, all of our certifications now, you have to either take them again or earn some type of point system by taking classes, which is pretty standard. Cisco came out in the late 90s with their CCNA. And again, the difference is CompTIA was an organization designed to build an entry-level cert. And it expanded from the A+ to the Network Plus to the Security Plus as the entry-level jobs in the field changed. They changed their offerings. The Cisco CCNA was always an opportunity to sell Cisco products, to make Cisco the #1 thing, and to get your employers, to get the big government contracts, to get the schools, to get everybody to buy Cisco networking equipment. Which it's funny, they did a great job, spread like crazy. Now nobody buys Cisco anymore because it's way too expensive. But if you buy F5 or Dell or any of the other networking products, they all support the same commands that you learn how to run with your Cisco CCNA anyways. So the 90s were really when certifications started to become popular. We talked a little bit about their purpose, right? So for companies that have a product, the purpose is to promote their product. So the CCNA is not for you to get a better job. It is for Cisco to promote their product, which is also one of the reasons I really don't recommend entry-level students get a CCNA. It's not an entry-level cert. Nobody's ever going to make you a network engineer for your first job. Nobody's going to trust a 23-year-old kid with their whole network. So learning all that stuff, and again, it's a very difficult cert to study for. It doesn't really help you. So you have to kind of understand their purpose. Same with Microsoft and their certs. Promote industry standards. CompTIA is a perfect example of an industry standard where multiple big companies got together and said, this is what we're going to agree as, somebody coming into the field of security should know. That's the Security Plus. And they do a lot of, research and work with companies to keep it up to date. Certified Ethical Hacker is another example of an industry standard. And it can be to verify competence. That is, they are a company that just makes their money selling a certification that you can use to go get a job. So the OSCP is really the only example that I know of just that. But when you're thinking about what certification should I get, think about why does this certification exist? So what do we look like? What do we think about when we're evaluating certifications? Is it a well-known technology or company, right? Microsoft certifications are probably going to be pretty useful because everybody runs Microsoft products. Cisco is pretty useful because everybody knows Cisco, and everybody who who buys non-Cisco equipment, the equipment is back compatible with Cisco. Red Hat, if you're looking at a Linux certification and it comes from Red Hat, you know that's probably pretty valuable, right? If somebody's like, hey, there's this, certification that I'm looking at getting, and you have no idea what company that is, right? For their PCs or the networking or whatever, you should be very wary of that. Is it a well-known organization? CompTIA, Offensive Security, ISC Squared. By the way, ISC Squared is an organization that you guys should all look into getting student accounts for, right? Student memberships, which is like, it's pretty cheap. It's like, $20, $30. And they're the ones who have the CISSP certification. But if it comes from an organization that everybody knows, you can probably trust it. If it meets some industry standard. The most common industry standard is the Department of Defense standard, but there are other ones out there, particularly when you start getting into the specific, digital forensics or ethical hacking or very specific fields. So what should you be thinking about when you're trying to choose what certification to start studying for? What area are you interested in getting into? And maybe you said Louis, you said you guys are doing like surveys.
Not that I'm aware of, but I mean, we do some apps.
Well, I thought you said that they were voting and you were looking at the most popular questions. So I'm kind of interested, what area are you guys interested in getting you working in when you get a job in the field? Are you looking at like information technology administration? Are you looking at working in networking and network engineering? Are you looking at working in the cloud? Are you looking at working in cybersecurity? Now, what you might want to notice is not there is programming and software engineering. The truth is there are plenty of certifications for programming and software engineering, but it's not nearly as popular, not nearly as standardized. So I would say if you're looking at getting into programming and software engineering, I would recommend, creating a project to demonstrate your skills. So if you're looking at getting into web programming, create a website, right? If you're looking at getting into app programming, write an app. That's a more common route to demonstrate competence in programming and software engineering. But if you're looking at IT, these four are areas where there are certifications that really can help you get a job. So Gabriel asked, do you think it's possible to get a job in cybersecurity with certs and a degree in IT, but no hands-on experience? Absolutely. There's a huge demand for people right now. My brother-in-law, I just talked him through so he has a degree in like economics. And then for the past 4 or 5 years, he's been a professional golfer in Asia. Which apparently is a job. I had no idea that you could be a professional golfer in Asia. And he, goes to China and does a PGA tour there, which obviously he hasn't been making any money this year. So he was looking at a new career. So he got his Security Plus. He put it up on his LinkedIn. He's had interview offers literally within 24 hours, right? I don't have a single student of mine who's gotten a certification who hasn't gotten a job. Not a single one. So absolutely, you can get a job without hands-on experience. There's just a ton of there. And getting a certification isn't the only path to getting a job. And we're going to talk about some other ways to do that later on to demonstrate competence. But it's certainly the fastest and the easiest. You want to think about what doors will this certification open, right? And that's another reason, I don't suggest going for things like a CCNA or an OSCP or those more advanced certs. Some students seem to think, oh, I'll get the more advanced cert and that will, that means I can jump right into a higher level job. And normally you can't. But certainly for entry level jobs, certifications can open the doors. Is this achievable? And I'm going to talk about certs I know about today, but you might be looking at a very specialized thing like, network defense or forensics. And you have to kind of do some reading and find some other people who've taken that certification exam and find out, is this something that somebody coming from outside the field can genuinely do with 1 to 3 months of studying? Because I will tell you too, some certs aren't designed for you to pass. Some certs are designed for people who've been in the field for 5 or 10 years. And you want to avoid those until you've been in the field for 5 to 10 years. And how much time is this going to take? And how much time do you have? Is this something you could study for, treat it like an extra class during the semester? Do you want to wait until the summer and then just really go gung-ho? But you need to plan that out. If you're looking into, we're looking at each of those 4 categories: IT and system administration. Microsoft has a plethora of certifications that can get you an entry-level job. Again, they're all for life. I don't know if they're going to keep that up, since before they used to update Windows every couple of years. Now they said Windows 10 is forever. But they're also not focusing so much on the desktop anymore. Desktop administration isn't quite a solved problem, but it's not as challenging as it used to be. So the big ones right now for Microsoft are their Microsoft 365 fundamentals and their modern desktop administrator associate. So those 2 go together and get you certified to manage Microsoft desktops. If you're looking at like a help desk job, desktop support, that's certainly a good certification to look at. If you're looking more for, again, Microsoft actually no longer offers their server certifications because they're moving everything over to Azure. So they have their Azure fundamentals, which kind of overlaps with cloud, but it's its own technology. And their Azure Administrator Associate, which is related to that. There's no expiration. There's a ton of free tools for these, so plenty of opportunities. You can go create like a free Microsoft account and get free copies of Windows 10 and Azure, and set up your own test VMs and teach yourself everything you need to know. One thing I will point out about Microsoft certification exams, they're not complicated, but they're detailed. So they do ask you a lot of detailed questions as if you are working in the industry. So I would say, effort to job, it's not my favorite, but if you really want to get into system administration, it's a great place to start. If you're looking at Linux, so there's the CompTIA Linux Plus, which changed a couple of years ago, and actually, now is one that I would recommend to students. A couple of years ago, it was a much harder exam. But again, I have students who, after taking 1 or 2 Linux classes, are able to study up and pass it. You could also go the Red Hat route. The advantage of the Red Hat route is they have an ecosystem that builds much higher. So they have System Administration 1 and 2, which 1 is probably all you would need for your entry-level job, but you can build on that to higher levels of technology if you're interested in Linux. Quick show of hands, or vote, right? Let me look at the participants. You guys can all use your reaction thing to vote, right? Actually, I can't see my participants list. There we are. Who here has never or barely touched Linux? Give me a yes or a thumbs up if you never or barely touched Linux. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, that's going to be a problem. One way you can solve the problem is by, getting a Linux cert, right? But it's going to be an issue when you go to, if you're going to work in the cybersecurity field in particular. I had a student, and she started an internship at Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. was starting like a cybersecurity program when they were rolling out their kiosks. And she got hired for this internship the same day as a student from Cal State Long Beach. And they ended up letting the student from Cal State Long Beach go after like 2 weeks because he had no Linux skills. All of your cybersecurity tools run on Linux, right? All of the back end runs on Linux. You need to get familiar with Linux if you are not already. So even if you don't necessarily go the whole route to getting a Linux Plus, you know, look at, you know, install it on a VM, right? Do something with it. Cloud computing, right? Cloud computing is, I would say, if you're looking at effort to job prospects, cloud computing is probably the best way to go right now. So CompTIA has their Cloud Plus. There's also a lot of vendor specific ones, but because cloud is so kind of new, even the vendor specific ones will get you what you need. So, you know, if you go get the AWS Cloud Practitioner and somebody's using Google, they'll kind of take that as an equivalent to, what is the Google one there? Cloud Architect, I think, is their entry level one. This also dovetails very nicely with computer science and programming, because as we move things to the cloud, it actually changes how we program, how we design our software. So if you do have software skills, it goes very well with cloud. And this is another one. I got a student who last semester got his Cloud Practitioner, and he said this, he put it on his LinkedIn, and he's been getting hit up on LinkedIn ever since, right? It's very in demand right now. There just isn't anybody who has it. And he told me the cloud, I have not taken the Cloud Practitioner myself. He said it was not that hard, right? So this is something where you can take a month or two, study intently for it, pass it, and it can lead directly into the field. Networking, again, the big ones are Network Plus and Cisco. To be honest, unless you really want to work in networking, I would say there are other ones that are better bang for your buck. Cisco has the CCNA, now it's the 200-301, right? Which is a precursor to all of their other exams, their enterprise security. CompTIA has the Network Plus. I would say of these two, CompTIA is probably where you want to be. It's just much more achievable for most students. And it is mostly, you know, memorizing terms and then learning subnetting, right? And a few hands-on skills. So the Network Plus is an achievable one, but I would say even of the CompTIA ones, this is probably the hardest one to get. But if you're like, I'm sure networking is the thing for me, I want to work in networking, or if you already have some other entry-level cert and you're like, I want to get one more before I start working in the field, the Network Plus is probably a good choice. Cybersecurity has many, many, many certs now. Gabriel, we're going to talk about the Pen Test Plus in a minute. All right, good question. So the cybersecurity, the Security Plus, all the reasons I said before, this should be your starting cert if you're interested in cybersecurity. It just checks off so many boxes, and it's something that you can do, right? The CISSP is another one that people often recommend. It was never designed to be an entry-level cert. It's kind of become an entry-level cert, but you know, I would not recommend it. It's very broad. So you look, they have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 categories, and each of those categories is like 4 or 5 chapters of a book, right? It's just a ton of terms and information and no hands-on. So for most of you, it's probably not what you want. And even if you took the exam and you passed it, you do not actually get the CISSP. You get some other certification that says you passed the exam, but you need 5 years experience in the field before they'll actually give you the CISSP. So I would recommend against this one, even though you will hear people in the industry say, oh, no, it's a good one. And if you search, there are a lot of jobs that ask for it, but not for an entry-level position. Certified Ethical Hacker definitely has the coolest name. Certainly, it's a more achievable exam than your OSCP, right? Which we'll talk about in a second. I would say if you are hell-bent, you want to be a pen tester, which I know a lot of students who are interested in cybersecurity, they want to be a pen tester because that's as close to a hacker as you can kind of be legitimately, right? This is probably the one you'd want to take. I will say it's kind of expensive for most of the preparatory materials. So that would be the main reason. I would say get the Security Plus and do other things to demonstrate your competence or get hired as a pen tester, and put this one on the back burner. But if you're like, no, I only want to be a pen tester, that's the only thing I'm interested in, this is a way you can do it if you can swing the money and dedicate the time. Now, CompTIA has a couple of other ones. It has the Pen Test Plus, right, which Gabriel was asking for, and the CISA Plus, right, which is the Cybersecurity Analyst Plus, and they're kind of, different sides of the same coin. The Pen Test Plus being the penetration testing, and the CISA Plus being the blue team, the defense. Both of them are very achievable. Both of them are very reasonable in price. The student fee would be like $100 and some, right, to take the test, and you can get relatively inexpensive books and set up your own practice environment. But they're really not in high demand. There's just not a lot of employers saying, hey, we want a Pen Test Plus. And again, that's partially because a pen tester position is not normally an entry-level position. That's normally somebody who's been working in security for a few years, transitioned to penetration tester. But again, if you're like, I really want to be a pen tester, but I can't afford to get the preparatory tools for certified ethical hacker, this is definitely a route you can take. And then there's the OSCP, which has two certifications that you might be considering. Their penetration testing with Kali, which is their general penetration testing course, and they just call it OSCP. And then there's their offensive security web exploitation course. Of these two, the penetration testing with Kali is probably something you do not want to do. Again, unless you are really hardcore. I think it's $1,200 for 3 months of access. And I'll tell you, it's very difficult to get through all the material in 3 months if you don't have a background in it. Very difficult. And I know people who, they've come out of college, they did the OSCP, they spent 3 months, literally 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and then they fail it. And then they got to buy like another few months, and it's just kind of heartbreaking. Because it's not designed for entry-level people. It's really designed for people who've been in the industry for a while. On the other hand, the offensive security web exploitation is really achievable because it's only focusing on web application exploitation and writing secure web code. So that's really more, if you want to build secure websites, then getting the offensive security web exploitation is a really good way to go. Again, it's pricey. Offensive security, because they were the only people offering these types of certifications 10 years ago, they kind of got in and have been able to make themselves a premium product. And because they're not like an industry standard like CompTIA, where they're trying to keep the prices down specifically to make it available to people, it's expensive. But I do know some people, and that's all they want to do. So I'm not going to tell anybody to not follow their dreams. Another question I get from students all the time is, do I have to? Do I have to get a certification to get a job in the field? Is it required? It's not. I told you that every single student I have who has an industry cert has a job. Well, the truth is most of my students who don't have a cert have a job too. There's just a lot of demand right now, but a certification makes your life a lot easier. One of the great things, though, is that you guys are coming up in a time where you have a lot more other avenues to demonstrate competence, right? So there's a lot of other pathways that you guys could do besides certification. You could gain real experience through things like volunteering, right? Asking to shadow. One of my students is now the cybersecurity analyst for Long Beach Unified, and he actually tried to take the security or the Network Plus and failed. But while he was doing that, he had contacted the chief information officer for Long Beach Unified and said, hey, can I come in and shadow you guys? So he kind of came in and shadowed the people who were doing the security work for them there. And then that actually led to a job for him, right? You can also look for internships. There are a lot of internships out there. There are also some internships that are like specialized that you might find through different organizations. Women in Cybersecurity just sent me one. I shared it with my students. I wish I had it here. I could share it with you guys, specifically for female veterans, right, who want to get into cybersecurity, right? There are some for other underrepresented groups. So there are a lot of internships where they say specifically, hey, we're looking for these people. And if you fit the bill, you know, you can start gaining experience there. I have some students who gained experience working with, is it Edison? Who's the power company? Edison out here? SoCal Edison? Yeah. So SoCal Edison hiring cybersecurity people like crazy, and a lot of internships because, you know, they're doing a lot of revamping of the power grid to prepare it for, well, so far mostly global warming and the fires that they keep starting, but also to prepare themselves for cyber attacks. So there's a lot of opportunities out there with internships. You can practice yourself. When I was a wee lad, right? I'm not joking. I had a computer that I was running Linux on it, and I bought a new network card, and I had to recompile the kernel to put a new network card in the damn thing. It was a nightmare back in the day. You know, you don't have to do that anymore. You can download, you know, VirtualBox and download, you know, the Ubuntu CD, right? The ISO, and set up your own little lab environment. The key thing is, you know, you can do that for cybersecurity as well, right? You can download machines from VulnHub and crack them, right? You can set up your own networking environment. You can build, you know, Windows networks. You can do everything on your own now relatively easily without a super powerful computer, right? If you have 8 gigs of RAM, you can run 2 or 3 virtual machines. If you got 4 gigs, you can run 1 easily. So you have the opportunity now that we didn't have before. You can set up your own little practice environment, and that's a great thing to talk about during an interview, right? Hey, I'm really interested in the subject. You know, I set up my own little Linux lab in order to practice with Linux. There are a lot of tools out there online that allow you to learn skills. Try Hack Me is a great one if you want to learn hacking skills. Hack the Box, and they actually have Hack the Box Academy to teach you lower level skills as well. You know, there's also, you know, over the wire and under the wire, right? For learning PowerShell and Linux command prompt. You know, these things did not exist before. So you can teach yourself. And those are, again, those are things that you can, when you go into an interview, you can talk about with an employer and say, yeah, you know, I have completed all of the Damien box on over the wire, right? And that demonstrates some skills to them. There's capture the flag events. Anybody here do the capture the flag today at all? I got an email earlier that there were people, they had a sign up for it, right? So, you know, those capture the flag. So Gabriel did good. Those capture the flag events are things that you can put on your resume. My students put the National Cyber League, which happens every year, every fall and every spring. They put that on their resume and the skills they learn in there. And then bug bounties, right? That is places where you can, you know, HackerOne, those kinds of things where you can sign up, create an account, and find bugs for other employers, and you can show that to a potential employer and say, hey, look at all the things I found, the weaknesses in their website. Whew, that was a lot more. This is a little different. I'm used to a little more back and forth. Love me jabbering. I hope that made sense to everybody. I hope you guys can kind of see some pathways for yourselves going forward, going to get a job. It is a great time to work in the field, right? I'll let you in a secret. It's always a great time to work in the field. This is the only field for the past 40 years has consistently expanded. Think about it. Every time you lay people off, you still need technology to replace the people that you're laying off, right? Every time you get more connected, you have to secure it. So a lot of opportunities in the field. So Gabriel asked, do companies offer training in cybersecurity, or do they expect you to be job ready? You know, Gabriel, when you apply for entry-level positions, they expect you to have entry-level skills. They don't expect you to know everything, right? And I always tell students, this is another thing, job related, not necessarily certification related, apply no matter what. So they might list all kinds of things they want on there, apply. Let them decide whether they want to talk to you, right? And during the interview, you can ask those questions. Hey, what kind of skills do you expect me to have walking in the door? And if it's not a good fit, you can always walk away. But I guarantee you, every single one of you needs experience interviewing, right? Particularly interviewing for tech jobs. So always apply. So Stephen asked, would a Security Plus and a CCNA do a good job of preparing someone for a job? NetSec Cybersecurity. I did not have an opportunity to do an internship and graduating without formal work. It seems like it would make it tough to find a job. I mean, it's always easier with experience, and it's always easier with a certification. And I would say, like I said, Stephen, I don't have any students with a certification who are not working right now. I would say the Security Plus is going to be a more achievable goal, right? That's one you could study for and get faster, and that will open up doors right away. Can you download the PowerPoint somewhere? Good question, Farzad. Louis, are you guys hosting this stuff anywhere?
We could, if you provide the PowerPoints, I mean, we could send it to the attendees as well.
You know, can I, let me just find it and drag it into the chat right now.
Yeah, I think that will work.
Let me just do that. Can I get it?
Aren't we recording it as well? Like,
yeah, it's also recorded, but actually I was gonna ask Garrett if that was okay. We were able to record, and I kind of forgot.
All right, let me go ahead. So, I got to do all panelists and attendees. What?
Garrett, are you okay with us recording the session?
Absolutely. It's weird. It won't let me. Oh, you know what? I'm trying to drag my Toro Hack presentation on, and it won't let me share it. Let me try to can I share it with the panelists. No. Can I?
Yeah, it doesn't give me option. I don't think it allows in the webinar.
Okay, so it's the webinar format that won't let me. All right.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
All right. So so yeah, you'll have to view the recording. Because I could post it on like you know, Dropbox or something, but that's going to take a few minutes.
Yeah, you can post it. Yeah, in the Dropbox or something, and then you just have it. We could post it on the message boards. I think that will work.
Bring this right. Oh, you know what? I can put it on OneDrive right now. I got OneDrive connected. Oh, I have to hold on. I have to stop my share and close it to share it to OneDrive.
Do we know where the recordings are gonna go? I had someone ask that. That's a good question.
I'm not sure as of right now. I'm gonna have to consult with the committee, and then we could get back on that through the announcements.
Okay, it's got to wait a few minutes before I can get a link to OneDrive, but I'll get it in a second. Let me see other questions. Besides Ubuntu, what other distros are commonly used in cybersecurity? Kali Linux is by far the most popular distro. Now, Kali is a little bit different, and you can find a ton of videos and resources on getting a Kali VM up and running. But, well, number one, run Kali as a VM. Don't try to install it in your system. I have students that think, oh, I'll install it in my system, it'll be more efficient. Don't do that. Kali is designed to be a virtual machine because you break Kali all the time because you're using all these cutting edge tools. So with a virtual machine, you can set a snapshot and you can always revert it. Number two, Kali has distributions for VirtualBox and VMware and the other popular virtualization software out there already. Get one of theirs because it has all the tools installed. It has all the files you want in there. If you install it from a CD, you're losing all the benefits. So Kali is probably the next one that I would get going. Parrot is becoming a popular one, Parrot OS, but Kali is still by far the standard. You guys said you're working on the recording. Any other questions right now?
I'm not seeing any. Let me see if there's any that they posted on the session Q&A on the Google session. Let me see. I actually see 3. Gabriel asked, knowing the certifications provide you mostly with knowledge, but not much hands-on skills. My question is, if one has different InfoSec certification and no hands-on skills, do companies usually offer training so their employee can develop his
Well,
skills?
okay. Hands-on skills are all relative. Let's start with that. You know, because in some certifications, for example, the Network Plus, I would say is not quite as hands-on as the CCNA, right? In that they're not forcing you to memorize the Cisco commands, but you're still doing subnetting. You're still, you know, configuring networks on local on host machines and servers and stuff. So there's always some hands-on aspect. Certification exams aren't like they used to be, where it's like, you know, 10 multiple choice, you know, questions and that's it. Second of all, you know, some certifications are completely hands-on, right? So it depends upon the certification. My advice is, and this is a problem with students in general. A lot of students really lack confidence in their hands-on skills, right? They're terrified to not know the answer. And the solution is set up your own little virtual lab, right? So if you're worried about, you know, if you want to study for the Security Plus and you're worried about having the hands-on skills, start setting up your own VMs and getting them to talk to each other. Start using, you know, try Hack Me or Hack the Box and start doing those things. You know, do things hands-on in addition to studying for the certification exam. But, you know, be confident in your own skills. Other questions?
I'm seeing one here saying, are you finding that U.S. companies are outsourcing and or offshoring their cybersecurity
No,
functions?
not at all. For a couple of really big reasons. The number one being, you know, trust, right? So we, you know, and offshoring has kind of always been an overblown threat. People, oh, they're going to offshore everything to India. Companies have tried doing that, and they've had problem after problem after problem. They've actually had a lot more success outsourcing to the Philippines, because there they have to they learn English is the language of their schooling. But even that, offshoring has really slowed down in the past 10 years, and that's just for like programming work. And for cybersecurity work, almost none of it is being offshored because you don't know who's getting access to it over there. You can't control who's walking into the buildings. You do not want your data overseas. So very little cybersecurity work is being offshored at all. It would also disqualify you if you're going after government contracts, right? None of that is being offshored right now. So Farzad asked, how much is citizenship important? Is it okay for a green card holder to apply for entry-level cybersecurity jobs? Absolutely apply. They'll tell you if citizenship is important. I'm going to tell you, for any federal job and for any company that does federal work, that is government contracts, they will require citizenship. But I have students who are dreamers who are working in the field right now. So it is absolutely possible to get cybersecurity jobs, just not some of them. And usually, like almost actually, you know, every time it is in the job description if citizenship is required, because, you know, they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their time. So if it doesn't say citizenship is required, apply for it. Other questions?
I have one more question, but I think you already answered, but I'm just going to state it anyways. It says, what energy certifications will be most advantageous? I guess the advantage to start off with while still as an undergrad student.
What was that again?
It said, what industry certification will be most will benefit a student that's still an undergrad student?
Yeah, I would say the Security Plus is going to be the one that benefits you the most, right? Yeah. Because that is a requirement for entry-level jobs. And, you know, one thing I want to emphasize about cybersecurity, we throw out cybersecurity and people imagine, you know, some fat weeb in their parents' basement, you know, hacking away. That's actually very small part of actual cybersecurity. There, you know, a lot of these companies, they need people to do things like look at cybersecurity regulations, to interpret policy. You know, we just did an internship project, and I had these students working with a small Department of Defense supplier. And what they were doing is helping them get ready for the new Department of Defense standards. So what they did is they looked at what the standard said, and they looked at their practices, and they said, oh, no, no. See how you're using this company to hold your email data? That's not, you know, feasible because you're you know, they're not certified, right? See how you have this policy when people leave the company, you got to change it to this. That's most cybersecurity work, is getting things up to standard or doing what we call a gap analysis. So Security Plus is going to qualify you for all of those jobs.
I agree.
One asks, are government jobs a good place to start out for cybersecurity? Absolutely. One thing though, if you're particularly applying for federal jobs, it's a slow process. It's 6 months before they even open up your application, right? So if you want to work for the federal government, apply 6 months before you graduate. I've had students who they applied after they graduated, they got some other job, they were working there a year, and then they get a call from, you know, from the federal government. It's just a very long process. But it is a great place to get experience there, and they do have great benefits. Their pay is usually a little bit lower, but their benefits are great. As a person majoring in IT and minoring in criminal justice, is there an opportunity for me? Absolutely. You might want to look into forensics, which is there's a ton of forensics work. Every time there's a crime and there's a computer involved, right? Somebody has to do digital forensics on that. A lot of opportunity there. Are there alternative certifications for database creation and maintenance now that Microsoft has discontinued their certs? That's a good question, Claudia, and I don't know off the top of my head about database certs, except as it relates to cloud. I know there are, like AWS has their database certification, but that would require a little bit more research. Matthew, do you think that companies will still accept MTA franchise? So yeah, even if Microsoft retires the MTA certs, you still have the cert. It doesn't go away. It just means they're not offering new ones. Since you guys will be getting jobs in the next few years, knock on wood, it shouldn't have a negative impact on your job search. So Stephen asks, is there a preferred website for looking for cybersecurity jobs like LinkedIn? I tell you, LinkedIn is a great source. I would start there. I would avoid general job site searches like Indeed or Monster. Does Monster still exist? Do people still use Monster? So I would start with LinkedIn. That's your best bet. I forgot the name of the website I always use. All right, we're out of time, guys. usajobs.gov for government jobs. And if you search for tech job site, there are specialized sites.
You could go ahead and finish the questions. I'm just stating like no more questions up to.
Oh, no more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cause you know what? I use this example all the time, and I can't believe I forgot the name. Dice.com. That's what I was thinking of. Dice.com is a job search site that's specialized in tech, and going to large companies and organizations themselves. You can look at Cal Jobs. You can look at LA Unified. You can look at big companies like Netflix and Hulu. I have a few students who are working for those companies in LA, and they all went directly to the website. So SpaceX, they have everything posted on their website. So I guess we're not taking any other questions. We're out of time. Thank you guys very much for your time. I appreciate you guys showing up here. If anybody has any questions, let me go ahead and put my email here.
They could post on the session Q&A. I don't, and you could answer them there, I believe.
What's that?
You could go on Hulu. They could post it on the session Q&A, and you're able to answer the questions there. Or if it's easier for you on message boards, whatever you prefer.
Okay, so there's a Google Q&A.
Honestly, whatever works for you. I'm just giving you options.
I'd be happy to use the Google Q&A. But can you give me a link to that?
Let me find it for you.
I think he meant Whova. It's a site we use, but you could just put your email down, honestly.
So through Whova, you mean? Yeah. I didn't install the Whova app for
Okay,
this,
no
so-
worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Just post your email and we'll leave it a couple minutes more so they could get your email.
Yeah, Richie, I did post a link to the slides. Let me post it again. So there are the slides on OneDrive. Okay, everybody?
All right,
Thank
guys.
you for your time and all the
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for giving us the opportunity and learning more about the industry certs.
Hey, guys.
Very
Thanks, I hope you got something out of it.
All right, guys. Sorry, kind of prolonged a little longer, but this ends our session for Link 4 in TorHack. I enjoyed my time hosting this session for you guys. We have other sessions still happening for TorHack, so feel free to look at the agenda so you won't miss anything at all. And I think Garrett said he was going to post his email, correct? In case.
I did post my email. Oh, you know what? I think I sent it only to the panelists. You know what? I'm not sending it to, because I'm not used to that. All panelists and attendees.
Oh yeah, got it.
So I'm sending it to the wrong people. There you go. So there's my email and there's a link to the slides for anybody. I apologize.
I'll leave this the session on for a couple more minutes so that people could get your email. But aside from that, thank you again, Garrett. We really appreciate it. Very interesting.
Thanks, guys.